Everything changed for Capcom's Monster Hunter series in January 2018, which saw the successful release of Monster Hunter World on the PlayStation 4. Not only did the series change platforms from Nintendo's family to that of Sony's, a reversal of the situation that took place only a few years beforehand when it jumped ship from the PS2 and PSP to Nintendo's hardware. But it also represented a significant departure of its underlying design, streamlining much of it and lowering the difficulty considerably to appeal to a wider audience. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, an upgraded re-release of the 2015 3DS title, is a bit of an odd duck, then feeling like a step back in many ways despite releasing after World. Even so, it represents the very best of what the old games have to offer. A strong case could be made for this being the best game in the series to date. Let's get the changes out of the way to begin with and dig down into why that Ultimate was included into the title. Clearly, there's the overhauled graphics and control scheme, more on this later, but Capcom has selected to include in a handful of other features as well. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate highlights a fantastic total of 93 monsters to fight, which is 20 more than were featured within the original generations. A few of these beasts are new, a few are returning from the past games, and a few are intriguing varieties on existing monsters, but anyway you cut it, that's a lot of monsters to battle. On top of this, there's an entire new level of endgame quest called G-Rank, which pits you against crazy difficult monsters with higher health and more attacks, but moreover permits you to create entire new armor sets designed with this late gameplay in mind. In addition to this, there's two new hunter styles, Valor and Alchemy, and a new type of Palico class called Beast, a new hunter art for each weapon class, and a new mechanic called Style Power-Up. SP is a chargeable mode that can be attached to a hunter art, allowing you to bolster its effects in battles, such as letting characters use items faster or reducing the stamina drain of a certain actions. Considering all the extra content that's thrown in, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate certainly earns that extra adjective, although those who have already put in hundreds of hours into the original game may want to take a moment to think before jumping straight in. This is not a brand new game, but your save data from the 3DS version can be imported, potentially allowing you to tackle that endgame content right away. As for the base game, it's for the most part all the same as the 2015 release, which isn't a terrible thing by any extent. The core gameplay circle is straightforward, however addictive, centered around battling monsters, carving them up for materials, making weapons and armor out of those materials, and repeating the cycle once more with a more powerful monster. Typically a game that was designed as a tribute to everything that gone before it within the series, meaning that long-time Monster Hunter fans will no question be satisfied to see the return of locales, characters, and monsters from over series' history. Fans of Monster Hunter World will be disappointed to see that numerous quality of life changes that game presented are no place to be found, but there's a certain charm to the put up or close up logic the game executes so well. And it's critical to keep in mind that this game saw its original Japanese release before World came out. Your adventure starts in the new village of Berna and makes next to no effort at implementing any sort of story next to the gameplay. Some may decry this decision and see it as something of a step back, but it feels like the right decision in light of being what's offered. Monster Hunter has never been a series focused on the plot lines, as this would only stand to get in the way of the grind-heavy gameplay systems. That being said, many individual characters still have a certain goofy quality that makes them memorable, which makes the cameo appearances of figures like the Carabiner from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate a welcome sight, a bit like seeing an old friend. After a hurried presentation by the Berna Village Elder, you'll be permitted to choose from a list of quests at your own pace, broken up into different star ranks by difficulty, with destinations extending from overcoming certain monsters to collecting different things from the field. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate luckily cuts back significantly on the monotony of early game tutorials that tormented past entries within the series, constraining these to their own tab on the quest board, in spite of the fact that collection and gathering quests still raise their heads rather frequently. In spite of the fact that we are able to see how these have their place within the game's progression. They teach you parts around what things can be found and where. These quests certainly speak to the foremost boring portions of the game, shunning high-intensity chasing activity with collecting mushrooms and flowers from darkened corners of the map, and they pop up a small regularly than it feels they ought to. The real stars of the show are the dozens of Saurian and Draconic beasts that you'll be tussling with, and fortunately, these make up the bulk of the quests that you take on. The designs range from outright terrifying like the Narcarcus and Malefestio to the more goofy and silly like the strange rabbit bear Lagombi, and every one of them is memorable in their own way. Not only does each beast look distinct, but lots of care has been put into the way that they move and strike, with many of the movements being based on real predatory animals studied by the developers. It's striking how much detail goes into many of these monsters. Many of them feel like they could truly exist in some distant corner of the earth, and that goes on a long way towards making each fight that much more engaging. In spite of the fact that it may not appear so in-depth on the surface, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is very much a game of strategy. Charging into a fight with small planning or preparation beforehand will ordinarily result in your character getting completely destroyed by the supposed prey and carted back to the base. The items and armor sets you prepare in advance can mean the distinction between life and death, and knowing different movements is key to victory. Given that there's a slight delay to almost each action that can be made, need to heal yourself mid-battle with a potion, better get to a safe spot as your character could be sitting duck while taking a long drink from their jar. Need to know the finest time to strike that lightning quick monster, consider its movements and learn the tells that flag its different attacks. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is an uncompromising game, but that's not to say that it's an unjustifiable one. It essentially requests that you pay attention. The tools you choose to fight each monster with are a critical component of success as well, with there being 14 different kinds of weapons, each with their own movesets, strengths, and weaknesses. For a large hard shield monster with high defense, it might be wise to take a hammer that doles out slow, heavy damage, while a quicker and smaller beast might justify the sword and shield or the bowgun. Each weapon class feels distinct and useful in its own way, and the diverse lineup of monsters encourages experimentation and adaptability. This is all supplemented then by the equally diverse lineup of armor sets that can also be crafted out of monster parts. Aside from the self-evident defensive buffs they give, each piece in an armor set contains a set numbers of skill points that under the proper circumstances can give the hunter inactive buffs which alter performance. One armor set may offer higher max health and speedier weapon sharpening, whereas another grants fire resistance and slower stamina depletion. Like with weapons, there's an armor set that matches each playstyle, and most of them look lovely cool as well. Making armor and weapon sets will make up the bulk of your encounter with Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, meaning that there's parts of grinding to urge sufficient materials, but there's something monstrously propelling, almost continuously having something fair past your reach that'll make strides your character in a few ways. Monster Hunter is fabulous and coaxing you into just one more battle. Two of the main gameplay changes in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate are the Hunter styles and Hunter arts mechanics, which further allow players to tweak the game to their liking. Hunter styles are a way of changing up the way your hunter moves, such as how aerial makes it easier to mount monsters, or how adept gives you a powerful counterattack if you dodge an incoming attack at the last minute. Certain weapon types feel geared more towards certain styles, but it's still fun to mix and match and see what combinations work best. Hunter arts are a part of styles too, acting as passively chargeable special moves that can make a surprisingly huge difference in the outcome of the fight. They range from defensive things like a dodge that makes your hunter completely invincible, for a few critical seconds of offensive options, like a powered up sword slash. Knowing when to make best drop these moves in a fight can make things a whole lot easier, and depending on which style you have equipped, you can have up to 3 arts equipped at once. Another defining highlight is Prowler mode, which acts as a fun side mode that lets you play as one of your cat Palico companions. When playing as a Palico, you can't use any items, but there are a series of equipable skills you'll be able to utilize in their place. And you too have the good thing about interminable stamina. In spite of the fact that not each journey is Prowler mode friendly, it can be greatly fun to trick around as a odd cat for a while, and the Palico's unbounded stamina supply makes it ideal for thumping out the tedious gathering quests that you simply have to complete before the next rank of quest opens. This mode serves as a flawless section point for new players because it strips back a few of the more complex mechanics for a more excusing and clear play fashion, and can moreover be an important support choice when chasing in a group. It's not a noteworthy feature, but it's a cool one in any case and can make for a cool turn on a something else routine quest. Though Monster Hunter games are already incredibly time-consuming in single-player mode, there's also a whole multiplayer aspect that features prominently, arguably acting as the main draw. An entirely separate quest board and ranking system exists for the multiplayer component, potentially allowing for limitless hours of replayability. Monsters fought in multiplayer are generally much tougher to take down, but having up to 3 other people wailing away with weapons of their own makes up for this, and you get a much greater sense of satisfaction beating a monster as a team rather than alone. Though you can play locally with other friends with Switch units, there's also online multiplayer which works quite well. On the presentation side of things, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate oversees to fulfill, indeed on the off chance that it doesn't fundamentally dazzle. The game's roots on the 3DS are apparent within the basic level geometry, chunky models, and 30 FPS cap, clearly presented to preserve compatibility with the 3DS adaptation, which was only released in Japan. In spite of the fact that the new HD textures and reasonable shadows go a long way towards minimizing this issue, what's maybe more appealing is the new control scheme, taking advantage of the additional buttons, a second stick, for an encounter that's much less cramped and more comfortable. Capcom did an honorable work in making this game control well for its 3DS release, but it feels so much more natural with the Switch's setup, and playing it on the go only assists hammers this home. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate may lack the smoothness and accessibility that made Monster Hunter World such a smash hit, but it more than makes up for it by being a sort of greatest hits collection of the high points of the series, giving you hundreds of hours of content to play through. Couple this with the HD visuals, easy to use multiplayer, and the ability to play the full experience on the go, and you've got a game that will easily appeal to both veterans and newcomers alike. It may not necessarily represent the future of the series, but Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is an utterly fantastic experience in its own right, and a worthy follow-up to the 3DS original, and one that no Switch owner will want to be without. I wonder if Monster Hunter Rise is a good title too. So yeah guys, that's it. If you guys like the video, leave a like, let me know what you think of the video, and as always, I hope you enjoy.